We heard a lot of hype coming into this year's WWDC. Anything from M1X Mac Minis to 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros, an Apple Watch and watchOS 8, iOS, iPadOS, macOS updates, and even the possibility of a larger and more powerful iMac. So let's talk about what we found out, what it means, and what we should be expecting over the next few months. And I'm not going to cover everything that was in the event because it was like 2 hours, so I'll just give you my highlights of things that I thought were the most important. The first major segment was iOS 15. And the first feature was FaceTime. So the first thing they did is added spatial audio to create a sound field that will help conversations sound more natural. So basically, if you've done FaceTime and you have, more than one person, you sort of get this, like, they're not stacked. It's almost like a collage of images. And now the audio will sound like it's coming from the direction of where that person is. So if the person's on the right, their audio is going to sound like it's coming from there. On the left, it's going to sound like it's coming from there. So that's kind of cool. Now, as far as your microphone, you're going to have two options. The first one is voice isolation, which basically means that through machine learning, it's going to analyze the audio, decide what's background music and what is your voice, and then it's going to be able to isolate your voice by blocking out some of that background noise. Now, the other option will be wide spectrum, where the microphone essentially picks up everything that's around you. Now, there are also some updates as far as video, and the first one is grid view. So everyone on the call will be in the same size tile and they'll be aligned on the screen. And at the same time, you're gonna be able to see who's speaking because their tile will have like a thicker white line around it. They also added portrait mode, which just like with photos, will blur the background. It's gonna be really interesting to see how well the edge detection works in video because it has to identify the subject and the background and decide where it's going to start applying that blur. Now, on a still photo, it's only doing it on one shot. In video, as you move, it needs to be able to do this in real time, which is super impressive. So I can't wait to see it. They also added a new feature called FaceTime Links, which basically kind of like a Zoom meeting, you can schedule it. And then it will give you a link that you can text people, you can email it to them, you can share it however you want to share it. And this allows you to plan a call ahead of time. One thing that they said very quickly, they sort of just glossed over it, but I thought it was really important, is that you can now join these calls from any device, they said. So even if it's a web browser, so you don't have to be on an iOS device, which is interesting. It's unlike Apple to do this. So hopefully I understood that correctly, but they said any device. But another cool feature that they talked about is called SharePlay. And they were talking about sharing what you're doing during the call. So you can, for example, bring music into your call. So if you're in Apple Music, you can select a feature that says listen together, and then everyone will hear the same music that you do. And other participants on the same call can add their own songs to the queue. Now, I'm not sure how that works with ownership of the song. Like, what if one person owns this song and then everyone's listening to it? I don't know if there are any licensing issues there, but that's one of the things that came to mind. Now, there are also shared controls on the call, so everyone can, pause, play, or skip songs, which should be interesting on a contentious call. Now, the next thing that you can share is movies. So through like Apple TV, or I think they mentioned other streaming apps. They weren't super clear about this. They showed other apps, but definitely on Apple TV, you can press play and then it'll sort of be a picture-in-picture. So everyone can watch the same movie together. Again, I'm assuming everyone would need to have a subscription to the same service in order to watch it, or maybe not. These are some questions that I have. And then they said that you could still jump into Messenger if you want to continue the conversation. So it's kind of cool if you want to watch a movie with friends, you're not in the same place because you can't be. That's an awesome feature. Then the next thing that you should be able to share are apps. So you should be able to have an app running on your screen and then share it with someone else, which could be kind of cool. Like if you're shopping for a house and you want to show them photos and you want to make sure that you're looking at the same photo, things like that. Like that sounds like it could be pretty cool. Or also if you want to show someone how to do something in an app, you could just do it through FaceTime. They can see what you're doing. Like what I did until now is do a screen recording and send it to them. But what you can do now is just share your screen and literally show them how to do something. So that's kind of cool. All right, so now the next section in the event had to do with messages. And they start out by talking about how, let's say, for example, you're in a group message or even just a regular conversation, and someone's sending you links or photos, things like that, and they kind of pile up in your timeline of your message, and then it's kind of a pain in the butt to go find them. A couple of new features that they showed. First one was like a collage of images, like if someone sends you multiple images, and then also a stack of images, so you can click on it and it will open up, and you can slide through to see each of the images, and then you can again click on it to expand. So that was pretty neat. And then it sort of ties into a new feature called Shared With You. So for example, if someone sent you a link in a text message, when you go to your news app, there'll be a section that said like sent to you or shared with you, I think is what it was called. And then you'll be able to find that link there. You can open it, and then at the top, it's going to show you who the person is that sent it to you. So once you're done reading, you can immediately continue the conversation with them. So that's neat. Another application for this feature is if someone wanted to share a playlist with you. So then once again, when you go to Apple Music, you're going to be able to see it, listen to it, and then go back to the person and tell them what you thought about it. They also included an integration with photos. So those photos of you are somehow incorporated into your memories and featured sections. Again, I'd love to see how this works in real time. Like they show you examples, but I'd love to see practically how this actually works. But overall, with all these features, what they're doing that I think is really smart is they're expanding the capabilities of the ecosystem. And they're basically just strengthening the ecosystem itself to keep more users in it. All right, now the next major section had to do with notifications. The first thing they did is show a new interface. So messages from people actually had their faces to the left, and then notifications from apps had a larger icon. So it's just more clear and just easier to see. Then they introduced notification summary, which is kind of a collection of notifications that you can schedule. So it doesn't interrupt you all the time, and you'd get it either in the morning or in the evening, whenever you want. And they said the notifications are prioritized based on how you use the apps. So there's some machine learning and AI happening there. And notifications from people won't be there. They'll be separate so you can get them. Now, at any point, you can set Do Not Disturb on. And now when you have Do Not Disturb on, you can actually have it show the other person that you have this turned on so they know you didn't get the message. That, I guess, if you have like the receipt thing turned on. And they also said that if it's an emergency and you have Do Not Disturb turned on, that someone can still get that message to you if they need to. All right, this whole notification thing then led to this new focus, which is supposed to like match your device with your current mindset. All right, so what you need to do is tell your device what you want to focus on. So for example, if you say, I want to focus on work, then you could only get notifications from people you work with and only see apps that you use for work. So you might not see, YouTube or Instagram, things like that. On the other hand, if you're saying, hey, I'm just relaxing and I just want to have fun, then you can see your fun apps like maybe YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is, TikTok, and you won't see your work apps. And you can actually organize your home screen and the widgets by focus. So this could actually be really cool because it essentially is like changing how your phone looks based on what you want it to do. And then once you set it on one device, so if you set it on your phone, for example, it will set it on the rest of your devices, which is actually kind of cool, right? Because what's the point of blocking something on your phone and then it keeps popping up on your iPad or on your MacBook Pro? All right, so now to the next section, which is LiveText, and it's super cool. Basically, it's kind of like Google Lens, but like built into your iPhone. So you can point your camera at, I don't know, some text. They showed it on a blackboard. And then you can have the text automatically detected, and you can select it, copy and paste it, do whatever you want with it. You can also use this for photos that you've already taken. So they showed a picture of someone sitting outside a restaurant, and the name of the restaurant was behind them, and they were able to select the name of the restaurant and get directions to it. And then there was another photo that had a phone number on it. I can't believe this worked, because when he zooms in, the phone number is like completely blurred out. So I can't believe that it recognized it, but it did. And they just clicked on it and made a phone call. So that was really cool. And this should work for photos from the web, screenshots, or any photos that you've taken. And it's supposed to work on iPhone, iPad, and Macs. And then kind of the next level of this is that it can actually recognize objects. So like art, books, nature, pets, and landmarks. It's able to detect, and you can click on it and get some more information. So I think they showed a dog, and you can find the breed of the dog, which will be cool. I'm gonna try that on my 2 dogs. I'll let you know what they are. Well, I know what one of them is. Well, I know what both of them are, but one of them is just one, and the other one is like a whole bunch of ones. So we'll get to that. The next thing they talked about, it wasn't this huge update, but it had to do with Spotlight. And it kind of tied into photos, because photos now appear in Spotlight search. So I guess it's cool because you can search by person or by scene or by elements in your photos, or even locations, which is neat. And then with LiveText, you can actually search by the text that's in the image. So if you have like a handwritten note or a recipe, you should be able to search by the words that are used. That's actually super cool. All right, then they talked a little bit about some upgrades to memories, how it would integrate songs that are kind of personalized to you from Apple Music. That was neat. There are also some updates to Wallet. Obviously, Apple wants you to replace your wallet completely. First, they added Pay, and then there are keys. So now they're adding ultra wideband support, and BMW is supposed to start using this. You could also do things like scan your corporate badge, and then hotels like Hyatt are supposed to start using this to give you a key, so you can just use your phone. A lot of these things seemed like they're in the very early stages, so they're really clever, cool ideas. And again, the implementation, as we get more and more user adaptation, I mean user as in the providers, that is gonna get even better. All right, the weather app got a new design. I guess that's kind of cool. I always like when those things are more interactive. Maps got a new update. It just looks a lot nicer. There is night mode. They actually added a lot more detail, almost like a 3D version. So when you're going on a road, you can see if you're gonna go under something or over something. There are also some better indicators, like you could see turn lanes, medians, bus and taxi lanes, or crosswalks, bike lanes. So these are the types of things that as you're driving through areas that you're not familiar with would be really helpful. All right, so then they went to AirPods, and they got me. I was like, oh, we're getting new AirPods. We're not getting new AirPods. But AirPods have some interesting new features. So the first one is Conversation Boost. And that's basically for people with mild hearing impairment. And it's able to focus on the person who's in front of you. So that way you'll be able to hear them better. And you can also reduce the amount of background noise that gets through to you. And it's controllable through a slider, which is always really nice to have. Next, they moved on to Siri, which just like announce messages where it could read your messages as you get them, you can also have it read notifications for you. Which first I was like, what would I ever use that for? And then they said, oh, like when your food gets delivered, it will let you know that the food has arrived, which is good because I never pay attention and it's always on silent, so I can never hear it. So it'd be cool because I always have my AirPods in my ear. Then another implementation that was kind of cool is if you set a location for your reminders. So this is like a real life example for me. Going to the grocery store and creating a list of the things that I need. If you set a location for it, then it will read it to you when you get there. That way I might actually use the list that I made rather than buying the stuff, forgetting 3 things, coming home, and yeah. That's me. That's real life me. The next AirPods feature was one that I've wanted forever. But now with AirPods Pro and AirPods Max, the Find My network can actually find them. It could kind of find them before, but not really. So now whether they're in your case or not, it's again supposed to work with AirPods Pro and AirPods Max. So sorry if you have the other ones. If they're very close to you and you're using Proximity View and the Find My app, it can actually lead you to them. And another cool feature is that you can set up a separation alert. So if you leave them behind, it will recognize that they're not with you anymore and will let you know where you left them. They've also added spatial audio to tvOS and spatial audio with Dolby Atmos is now available with Apple Music. So it's starting today. All right, so next they moved to iPadOS. I was super curious to see what they were doing, especially with the new M1 iPads. And the first update that they talked about was widgets. So now rather than having the widgets on the left of the homepage, you can put them anywhere you want. You can put them above your apps, in between, like literally wherever you want on the screen. There are also some new widgets, like a Find My widgets, context widgets, parcel one, which will show you incoming packages. There's an Apple TV widget, a photo widget, and a files widget, which actually looks really cool. And that would actually be very useful. There are also larger format widgets, which will work only on the iPad, which again makes sense because of the larger display. Then they talked about the fact that if you're adding widgets all over the place, they're taking the space of other apps. So now you end up creating more and more pages. And if you're looking for a specific app, it's now on page 8. It's kind of a pain to have to scroll to it. So they introduced the app library just like what we have on the iPhone. But rather than having to scroll all the way to the right in order to get it, you actually have access to it from the dock. And this basically gives you access to all your apps. So it's essentially filtering out all the widgets and just gives you an interface where you see all your apps. The other cool thing about that is that if you have a page full of apps or 2 pages full of apps that you don't actually go to very often, you can hide those pages because those apps are available from the app library. All right, then we got to multitasking, which is definitely an area where the iPad could use some improvement. Now, we already have split view on the iPad, but they changed the way that it works. So now there is a new control at the top where you essentially are telling it that you're gonna go into multitasking mode, and you select the first app and it slides it over to the right. Then what you can do is select any of the other apps. You can go to different pages and you don't have to start from the dock or from search. You just click on the next app and it opens it in split view. To kind of get out of split view, you can swipe down on either of the apps and then the next app that you open will open in split view again. So it seemed very, very streamlined. Again, I want to see how it actually works when I try to use it. There's also a new feature called the shelf, which if you have multiple windows of a single app open at the same time. If you watched part 1 and part 2 of my iPad's tips tutorial, you saw it there, but you can essentially tap and hold on an app right now and it will show you all the windows that you have open. So that's one way that you can do it. But now there's a shelf in the app where on the bottom, it will show you all the different windows that you have open. And if you have multiple ones open in split view, you could still access any of them in a much more streamlined way. What was disappointing to me was that there were no updates to the external display functionality, so no removing of the black bars. And they also didn't mention any way to get an extended display. So it seems like an external display will still mirror what's on the iPad rather than, again, getting 2 displays to work with. All right, the next set of features that they talked about had to do with notes. There were some updates to the actual Notes app, but the one that I thought was really cool is called Quick Note. So if you have the Apple Pencil, you can swipe up from the bottom right and that will just start a note. But if you're in an app like Safari, you can write something and include the link. And the next time you're in Safari visiting that link, you'll see a little notification that says that you have a note connected to it, and then you can reopen it right from there, which is actually really, really clever. Then the event shifted and started talking about privacy. So the first thing they mentioned was, you know how sometimes in emails, there are ways for them to track you? Now Apple says that it's gonna hide your IP address so they can't see where you are and they can't see whether you open the email. It'll be interesting to see how that works and how it impacts services like MailChimp or Constant Contact and how it impacts open rates. In Safari, there'll be, again, more aggressive blockers of trackers. And that's actually kind of interesting because you can see which ones are doing it and how often they're doing it. And I think they have a running 7-day total for that. The next major upgrade had to do with Siri, and this is actually a really big one. So we've got on-device speech recognition. So you don't need Wi-Fi or an internet connection to do most speech recognition, they said. So that's kind of cool. Again, from a privacy standpoint, I know people are worried about the fact that what you're saying is being sent somewhere to be analyzed and then being sent back. So that will be removed. And it's also faster because, again, it doesn't need to be sent and returned. It's being done on your device. Again, that's good. Good work, Apple. Another couple of cool features had to do with account recovery. So I don't know if you've ever been locked out of an iOS device or any device, but it's pretty annoying. And I mean, I guess it's good because they don't want people going into your device. But now you can set up recovery contacts, and essentially, if you can't get in, you can call them, they'll get a code, give it to you, and then you'll be able to log in. Another situation which unfortunately I've had to deal with is digital legacy. So if someone passes away, you really have no way to get into their device. And if there's something that they wanted to pass on to you, there's nothing you can do. So now you can actually set legacy contacts or digital legacy contacts in your device. And in the case where you happen to pass, that person can request access to that information. The next really cool update had to do with iCloud, and they sort of rebranded it to iCloud Plus. The first feature is called Private Relay, which kind of sounded like a VPN. I don't know if it's a VPN. It sounded like a VPN, but basically when you're browsing, it's going to encrypt your traffic, and I'm not even going to get into the details. It encrypts it, and they're saying that there is no compromise in terms of performance, and that's not going to let people track where you are, and definitely not cross apps. Another feature was Hide My Email, where instead of having to give your actual email to whoever when you're signing up on some form, you can create random emails that they'll give you, and then it will forward the email to your mailbox. That way they don't actually have access to your email. There are also some watchOS updates, but I'll cover that in another video. Let's move on to macOS, and the new one is called Monterey. So the first really cool feature is called Universal Control, and basically you can use a single mouse and keyboard to control all your devices. So they showed a MacBook, and then they took an iPad and put it right next to it, and the MacBook detected it. So now you can use your trackpad and move it over to the iPad. You can again work on the iPad using the trackpad and the keyboard, and you can even copy something from the iPad and then paste it on your MacBook. And then they slid over an iMac and to the other side, and it recognized that it was there. And again, you can control the iMac from your MacBook Pro or MacBook, whatever it is. You can actually move over to the iMac and use that keyboard. So it seemed like a really cool, streamlined experience if you're using multiple devices, and might actually get it to where you use AirDrop a little less, especially if you can drag and drop. That was really cool. I don't know if that's just with images, but it was pretty sweet. The next thing that was important to me was a Safari update, which I usually wouldn't be like that interested in a browser update, but this was actually really cool. So they redesigned the entire thing. It's all like so much cleaner. It looks cool. It actually changes color based on the page that you're on. So it almost seems like it's customized to the web page that you're on. And they also incorporate something that I love about Chrome, which is tab groups. So basically, instead of just having like 1,000 tabs, if you're working on planning a vacation, for example, you can open multiple tabs and then group them into a vacation group. And then when you want to continue that browsing session, you can just click on that and just have those tabs open. And you can create multiple groups, which is awesome. They also work across devices. So you can set it on your iPad Pro and then continue to work on your MacBook Pro, on your iMac. And they showed that when they had them open at the same time, if you added a tab to one of them, it would add to the other one. As you navigated on one device, it actually navigated on the other one. So awesome. Looks like really, really clever sort of interactive functionality there. And then they even were able to do this on the iPhone. Obviously, it's a completely different interface. It's at the bottom of the screen and it requires you to scroll to show it. But the fact that they were able to provide that functionality on such a small interface was really well done. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought about the event. Click on my face to subscribe and then watch one of these videos. You know what I always say? Buy it nice or buy it twice. Good luck and see you soon.